Last night, I've said this on plenty of occasion. Growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not the biggest NBA town, okay? Don't have a basketball team, but we have a hockey team. I love the Pittsburgh Penguins. Really, the only team I was ever truly a fan of was the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, the family lived and died with the Pittsburgh Steelers and everything of that nature. But the Pittsburgh Penguins were the team that really rallied my childhood, Mario and them. So I didn't get into the NBA. Then when I came to Indianapolis, I got a chance to become a fan of the Indiana Pacers. And there was a run there where the Eastern Conference Finals was something that the Pacers were going to. That Paul George, George Hill, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, coached by Frank Vogel squad. We were having a lot of fun whenever I first got to Indiana, so I got a chance to see it. And I'd always been a LeBron James fan because whenever I was in high school, I watched him play against the Pennsylvania All-Stars with his high school team in downtown Pittsburgh, and I think he had 78 points or something like that. He dunked from the foul line. It was just next level. So watching him kind of grow in my generation, watching him dominate, not really getting in much trouble while the spotlight has been on him since he was 16 years old, I've always been a massive LeBron James fan. So anytime people would have the conversation of who's the greatest player of all time, I would always concede the fact that Michael Jordan was the greatest player of all time. But when LeBron James was done, I said, when LeBron James is done, I think we'll all say that LeBron James was the best player of all time. After watching that first two episodes of The Last Dance last night on ESPN, I very much understand whenever everybody looked at me and said, no, there will be nobody that'll pass Michael Jordan. And I was like, no, you're saying me this guy that's 6'10", he's taller than Michael Jordan. He's been in the spotlight since he was 16 years old. This guy who made it to the finals for 45 straight years, it felt like, for LeBron. You're telling me that you don't think by the end of his career, they'll ever be able to say that he's like, and they were like, no, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time and there's nobody even close. And then you listen to Greeny's tweets, Mike Greenberg, who said, I saw the entire thing. What you will see is solidifies the fact that he's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, or whatever. And I always said, I was sick of the old people refusing to understand and recognize the greatness of the youngs, right? This happens in every sport. It doesn't matter who it is. This person, if you grew up with them, they're the best and the other people aren't. So that's what I was like, yeah, it's a generational thing. You'll never get it. Whenever you guys are gone, LeBron James, I'll say he's the best of all time. Then you watch that Last Dance last night and you just realize, man, Michael Jordan was just a different animal. That guy, the Chicago Bulls, I had no idea that they were just like the Flint Tropics. Yeah. I had no idea they were the Flint Tropics potentially getting kicked out of the NBA before he got there. I had no idea that whenever he got on that team and was a rookie, his entire squad was just snorting more cocaine in every city with more strippers in the rooms and things like that. I had no idea that Michael Jordan was literally the savior for the Chicago Bulls. I always assumed the Chicago Bulls esteemed tradition, esteemed organization. This is the top franchise and everything like that. I was wrong. They stunk. And guess what? Since he's gone, they've stunk. That guy put the number 3 city in America on his back in the way he played, his savage style in the court, and obviously the way business was done by Jerry Cross, who's a stooge, Napoleon stooge, least self-aware stooge, prick stooge. I think that was something that I don't think I fully understood. Now, granted, we got to talk about a couple other things. Scottie Pippen's agent needs to get the hell out of here. Now, for Scottie Pippen, if you're thinking about Scottie from Scottie's standpoint, and we've gotten a chance to shotgun beers with Scottie, and I got a chance to watch Scottie Pippen dunk in an eagle from like 120 out on me to basically kill me in a one-on-one golf matchup, even though I got the belt. Scottie Pippen does not. He embarrassed me on CBS with his incredible golfing, and it was nice to get to chat with him. And you look at it from his standpoint, where I think he had 11 siblings or something like that. So whenever he was offered $18 million, in his eyes, that was probably a massive thing. But the league took off because of this Chicago Bulls team. They started winning. The salary cap went up. And the fact that they refused to renegotiate with Scottie Pippen, right? And now, granted, Michael Jordan very easily could have wrote a check for $5 million from either his endorsement money or his NBA money to his number 2, who he said, I've never won without Scottie Pippen. I think this is the biggest takeaway from last night is everybody's like, damn, Scottie Pippen ain't make no money while they were doing good. Michael Jordan definitely could have taken care of him, but I would assume the way everything goes, just like how all locker room conversations go, like, hey, that's your business, man. I'll handle my business, you handle your business. Scottie Pippen handled business bad one time. That one deal that he handled badly ended up affecting them in the long run whenever Scottie Pippen decided to enjoy his summer and not get his surgery going into that this last season that they're covering and everything like that. I was so intrigued by it all. I absolutely enjoyed getting a peek behind the curtain and learning about something I did not know about. I didn't know much about the NBA back in the 90s and the 80s. It was kind of fun to learn about just a force in the athletic world that I don't think I've given enough respect to, and that is Michael Jordan. He said he's going to look like an ass or whatever after the whole of the ass after this entire thing. I would assume where it begins is he called Scottie Pippen a little bit selfish. I think he said Scottie Pippen was playing for peanuts, literally. And he was gambling against him in golf and things like that and betting on luck. I mean, Michael Jordan treated Scottie Pippen in a very interesting way, especially now that he said, I never won without Scottie Pippen. And he called Scottie Pippen selfish. But I think the big takeaway from night one is Scottie Pippen's agent is bad, Michael Jordan is a game changer, and Jerry Krause is a stooge. And I think that's how everybody feels. Another person that was in that, David Falk, he was Michael Jordan's agent, bald guy. Okay, he's the guy who created the Jordan shoes. And let me tell you how I know that. I was sitting in a Pacer game. I think AQ was with me. I think AQ Shipley was sitting right next to me. It was me and AQ. We're sitting baseline, but feet on the wood. No big deal. Here we are. Nice. Paid for it, though. It wasn't given to me. I paid. It was pretty expensive, but we were there. And right underneath the hoop, basically, and Roy Hibbert, in the middle of the first quarter or something like that, does a layup or something, but gets pushed like into my lap, stands up, daps me up. I said, what's up, Roy? He goes back, shoots the free throws. The guy sitting next to me is in a suit, bald head, and he hits me, and he goes, who are you? And I go, who are you? And he goes, no, I'm his agent, and he dapped you up before saying anything to me. I would like to know who the hell you are. I was like, oh, I'm Pat. Nice to meet you, man, or whatever. He goes, I'm David or David or something like Dave. I was like, oh, nice to meet you, man. And AQ goes, he starts hitting me. AQ, one of the biggest Jordan fans of all time. Okay, AQ goes, yo, that is Jordan's agent. I was like, Jordan who? I was like, Jordan who? He's like, Michael Jordan. I was like, no, he's not. I was like, so who all do you rep? You rep Roy Hibbert or whatever? He was like, yeah, I rep Roy Hibbert, and I also created those shoes you're wearing. I had Jordans on, and I go, AQ, you're right. He goes, I know you're right. And Falk goes, what was he right about? He said you were Jordan's agent. Is that right? He goes, yeah. I was Jordan's agent from the beginning or whatever. I'm like, nice to meet you, sir. And it was a hell of a handshake. He gave me his phone number. I still have his phone number to this day. Never, ever used it. He told me to text him whenever he left. Never did it. This is another thing where I just, I get a contact. I refuse to use it. And then I watched The Last Dance and I realized that this guy was one of the most pivotal parts of basically American sports business. And I bumped elbows with him. No big deal. Texted him last night.
Nice.
Yeah, I texted him last night.
Let's get some shoes in here.
I told him, I said, what a legendary performance by you tonight. And I assume, I haven't texted, what was that, probably 10 years ago. So who knows whose phone that is? I have no idea. But it was a fun night for me, man. Yeah. It was a fun night kind of watching that. And just his ability to fly and float in the games. I mean, it was just, everybody talks about how many points Jordan would score if he came into this era because defense wasn't what it used to be and stuff like that. I mean, he was getting fouled while doing things, and they rarely called it. I would assume Jordan would dominate in this era. But the conversation was always, if LeBron was in that era, how would have LeBron done? And I would assume LeBron would do well as well. But, man, watching Jordan, what's that?
You would have cried the whole time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
When they get to this Pistons series, he might be crying a little bit, actually.
But Jordan, I mean, he was just a different animal. That was fun to learn about. I felt very ignorant afterwards about. I knew nothing about this guy, and he is unbelievable.
The ball control he has on like those layups where he goes into contact and guys are just hanging all over him. It just he just never missed.
Well, and he just waited. Yeah. The guy waited longer than everybody else to put his shot off, and I think I saw Kobe do a lot of that too. And Kobe always said he obviously wanted to reflect his game with Jordan and everything like that. But he had that ability, watching those highlights. And I always said all we ever see is highlights of him. Mm-hmm. Because whenever somebody's retired, all anybody ever shows are if you look at the NFL, the only thing they post is my highlights, right? They don't post my terrible stuff. Thankful. I mean, there was a lot of that stuff. But you kind of bangers are the only thing that survive. Mm-hmm. Okay, bangers are the only thing that survives. So you never see their bad moments. So that's why I was always like, people say Jordan's the best because all they see is the bangers. All they see is highlights. And every coach was like, no, that was every night, pal. That was every single night. That's how he was. He was just wired completely differently than everybody else. And I like the fact that he and not Smith, right? Dean Smith. Dean Smith, and then Roy Williams, right? I like the fact that Roy Williams said that he had a conversation with him. Michael Jordan said, I'm going to outwork everybody. And I think that deep down, every human that you've seen that is at the top all had one trait, and it's an incredible work ethic. And I think that is where it all starts and ends for people that want to be great with something. And for people watching at home or whatever, they're like, oh, I want to be great. I want to be great. Well, it seems as if all the people that are up in that sphere all have one common thing. It's just they work their asses off. Yeah. And that is that was kind of cool to kind of watch it all unfold there with that old Michael Jordan.
The stat that I saw last night that jumped out, that you're talking about, like seeing Jordan's highlights and not the lowlights. With the Bulls, Jordan had more career games with at least 50 points. He had 30 of them than games with 15 or fewer points. He had 29. So he had more 50-point games than he had games less than 15.
It was.
The one quote that he said, too, was like, there's probably someone new in the stands. And he didn't want to like turn it off for them if it's like they paid so much money to get in. I thought it was pretty cool.
It could be their first time ever seeing me, and he wanted. I mean, that is just a cool legendary quote. Just like, hey, this might be this person's first time getting a first impression of me. I'm gonna make sure I just have. And by the way, I'm gonna say this as somebody who's done an NBA introduction. I remember their intros being a lot more electric. I remember them being a lot more electric. And I'm assuming the guy that did the voice is, him. Yeah, I'm assuming he's made a lot of money off of this whole thing. I'm going to let him know that wouldn't have rode in this era, pal. You got booed off the stage. Yeah. Chicago Bulls. The music was awesome. The music was electric. Yeah. The music was awesome. It sets the tone. But I think he didn't give Michael Jordan enough of just in the one that I watched. He didn't give, that guy, he's Michael Jordan.
The one you sent was a bad one.
Well, that was when it was making its rounds on the internet. I was like, not good. I was expecting more. Because when I did my intro, all anybody said was, you think it's going to be anywhere near what the Bulls guy did? And I'm like, I watched the one I saw, and I'm like, yeah, I think and I had to, by the way, I had to introduce the stars second. I had to introduce the star of the show second for some reason because they got Jerry Krause down there. Whatever. That guy stunk.